What does it mean to be in a state of flow? Mihaly Csikszentmihalyie came up with the concept in the early 70s during his discussions and interviews with a lot of athletes, talking about how do they discover their peak performance. You might even recognize it as, say, being in the zone. Have you ever been so immersed in an activity that the time just seems to fly by and just smashing out the work, and it just feels really great to be there? That's what the concept of flow comes from. So in today's video, we're going to explore that. What does the flow look like? And what are some steps we can take to help you get into that state of mind and push through those activities? Let's have a look now. Here's a simplified version of Mihaly Csikszentmihalye's graph on how we find our flow zone. So it's about finding that balance between the difficulty of the task that we've been assigned and our abilities that we have, or skills that we have, to be able to complete that task. So we want to find that balance up through the middle. If we set ourselves a task or a goal that is too difficult, it can often put us in a state of anxiety. So we start to panic about the fact we can't do it, or it's too much to take on. So we push it aside, we leave it. The other thing is the ability. If it's not up to the standard or the level of ability that we have, we can become quite bored with it. So have you ever been given something to do at work that you find really, really simple, and that it actually bores you and it feels like it's taking forever to get done, and you seem to keep putting it off? So that's the balance that we're trying to find between being totally bored or anxious, which are the two states that we end up pushing the task aside and not completing it, compared to finding a nice balance of when we get into that state of flow, or when we're in the zone and it just feels like the task is just flying through seamlessly and time doesn't exist anymore. So how do we get into that state? What are some steps we can take to get there? Well, the first thing to do is we really want to discover the true purpose behind the goal that we've set. So what's the reason, or what's the purpose behind me wanting to do this task or get through this task? What's the core purpose behind it? When we do that, we want to then remove some external distractions. So, if it means turning off your emails, turning your phone off, or diverting the calls, whatever you can do, just remove those external distractions. That could even be changing the environment that you're in. Okay, so if you're in an office environment and you find that you're constantly being distracted, you might want to remove yourself from that and go to somewhere more quiet. So remove those external distractions so you can focus on that task that you really want to complete. The third thing is you want to make the task challenging. Right? You want to challenge yourself, but not to the point where you enter anxiety. Right? So you want to find something that's going to give you a bit of excitement, that's going to challenge you, get you out of the boredom zone, not push you into anxiety, but get you into that flow state, something that's going to excite you about getting the task done. Then we want to look at working at our best biological time. Now, what does that mean? That means that we don't always work the same during the same time of the day. So a 9-to-5 job might not be where you find your state of flow. You might be a night person. So you might find that your energy really kicks in after hours, after 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock even. You've got to find what that time is for you. You might be a 4 a.m. person. You might be a 10 a.m. person. It's about discovering what's that time in the day where you feel most energized. And you can start to look at that and study that now. Look at when are the points in the day that you feel like you really want to go out and tackle something. So work at your optimal time. Now, I know sometimes if you're in an office job, it's hard to find that. But if you're working in your own business or you're starting up your own business, really focus on what's that best biological time for you to be active. Then we want to look at lowering our internal distractions. So that means all the negative thoughts that come out. That means potentially you might have to meditate, find some peace in yourself, remove anything internally that's holding you back. And those are the self-doubts and limiting beliefs, all those kinds of things. So we need to really focus on our inner work as well. Because once we can focus on those inner work, we can start to really focus on the tasks that we've got ahead. Close the voices down that are telling us to stop, don't do it, and hesitate, and push forward through that. Number 6 is we want to work on one task at a time, right? People talk about multitasking is a great skill, but the problem with multitasking is we get caught up. right? And that's when our external distractions come into play, or our internal distractions come into play, because we're getting pulled from one job to the other. We're not being able to allow ourselves to be immersed into the task and to find that state of flow. It's really important to focus on it, put our energy towards that one task, and we get that finished. Because what you'll find is when you start finishing one task, it'll be easy to step onto another and to another, and then that's how you find your flow, because you feel like you're achieving something. When we're multitasking, we feel like we're doing a little bit of piece here, a little bit of piece there, and we're getting lost in a bit more. And that's when we get either the anxiety, because we feel like we're not actually achieving anything, or the boredom, because we're just really not getting anything done. Then what we want to do is we want to try and create a mental cue to trigger that state of flow. So this is where it's important to really journal or note down the times and the activity you're doing that actually gets you in that sense of flow, because we want to start to create a mental cue for that, something that we can focus on and get ourselves prepared for before we start a task that we want to get into flow. So going through the steps, we want to discover our purpose, we want to remove external and internal distractions, we want to find a task that's challenging for us, we want to work at our best biological time, whatever time of the day or night that might be. Then we want to work on one task at a time. So list out all the tasks you want to go through and the goals that you want to achieve, and you allocate this list to each of those goals and those tasks, so you can make sure that you feel like you're accomplishing something. And then we want to really work on what's that mental cue, what's that one thing that really gets us into that flow state and gets us prepared to push through that moment. So focus on trying to find your flow zone, stay out of anxiety and boredom, push through it, work through those steps, and good luck with finding your flow.